Year-old young lady. She's a black female, and our shooter is a 3-year-old wonderful child and a black male. And here's what occurred. Last night, 3 buddies got together at a residence in West Lakeland in order to watch the basketball games, the playoffs. They were watching the West Coast games, and just before midnight, during the excitement of the ball game, they heard a pop. And they immediately looked to see that the 2-year-old female had been shot and was on the couch, and the 3-year-old scrambled from the living room, running and crying to his bedroom. Immediately, they gathered up the victim and the other child, and the 3 friends raced toward the hospital on Olive Street to seek treatment for the 2-year-old child. A vehicle turned into their path, and they T-boned the vehicle on Olive Street, and there were significant injuries from that as well. At that time, a Good Samaritan stopped. It was explained to the Good Samaritan that this 2-year-old beautiful baby had been shot, and the Good Samaritan took the baby and a male to the hospital. EMS, fire, and the Lakeland Police Department responded to work the crash, and through their investigations, determined that, in fact, there was not only a crash, but there was a shot child. And the Lakeland Police Department determined that the shooting occurred in the unincorporated area of Lakeland, so immediately notified the sheriff's office. So the shooting occurred just before midnight on Friday night. The sheriff's office got into the investigation about 4:30 in the morning. And as we began the investigation and we served a search warrant, we found that there was some problems at the house and that there was marijuana there. And the house was the house of this Chad Berrien. Chad Berrien has 4 outstanding failure to appear warrants for battery, resisting arrest, and 2 counts of driving on suspended driver's license. He totally cooperated in the investigation. He is not a convicted felon, and he was not in possession of the firearm this night. Cavante Wilson's 23. He was the one that was carrying the concealed firearm and brought it to the house on this evening whenever he came to watch the ball game with his friends. The firearm that he possessed was a High Point .380, and he stuck it between the cushions on the couch, he said, to keep it away from the children. So he has been arrested for failure to safely store a firearm, carrying a concealed firearm, possession of marijuana, possession of drug paraphernalia. He is also not a convicted felon, although he's now charged with felony charges. Chad is being charged also, in addition to his failure to appear warrants, with possession of marijuana over 20 grams, possession of paraphernalia, maintaining a house for drug use. The third gentleman was there watching the ball game, enjoying the evening. He has no criminal charges and obviously was as shocked and as upset as everyone else. It's refreshing when people cooperate with the investigation, and these gentlemen totally cooperated with the investigation. But let me tell you about the 2-year-old right now. The 2-year-old was being held by Chad when the crash occurred, and the hospital determined that the child was shot in the chest, and it appears at this early point in the investigation the projectile went downward through the pancreas and maybe the large and small intestines and out the back. The child is in exceptionally critical condition, and certainly The baby needs our prayers, really, as does the entire family. That child has already been through one surgery to save her life, and she is being transferred to an intensive services hospital in the Central Florida area as we speak. When we served the search warrant, the family cooperated with us and showed us where they were, what they were doing. The mother was not there at the time. She was with her sister. The other friends were there watching a football or a basketball game and were not doing anything that was reckless other than, once again, Cavante should have left his gun in his car, or if he had have taken it into the house, he should have carried it appropriately and then appropriately secured it away from children. I don't know how you think you safely keep a gun away from children when you stick it between the couch that the children are playing on. It is important to point out that there will be additional charges for Cavante in 7 days. And you go, well, why is that? Well, you know, it's not unlike the legislature to complicate everything we can. Obviously, there was an event that occurred and where apparently a parent was immediately arrested when a child was shot. So in order to fix that, there is now a subsection on assault, battery, and culpable negligence that says when a minor child is accidentally shot by another family member, no arrest shall be made pursuant to this subsection prior to 7 days after the shooting. Well, I want to underscore, the child was shot by her brother, but not by one of the adults, okay? And I certainly understand the state attorney's office. They said if the child dies, then obviously Cavante at least will be facing a culpable negligence and manslaughter charge. So we anticipate we'll be charging him with culpable negligence in 7 days. Not today, because once again, we don't want to take a chance that the courts will interpret this statute in its broadest way and create problems for the state attorney's office. So we agree with them that we will not file those charges for 7 days from this date. So at the end of the day, here's the message. Guns are inanimate objects. If you have a gun, you have to respect that gun. You must treat all guns like they're loaded all the time, this .380 was, and appropriately handle them and keep them out of the hands of children. In this case, it didn't happen. No one in that house that night intended for those babies to have that event that occurred. No, none of them. The 3-year-old, by the way, has been removed from DCF and placed in the care, custody, and control of the grandmother while the investigation goes on. Obviously, and I underscore obviously, the 3-year-old's not going to be charged with a criminal event for obvious reasons. That child can't be held accountable for his conduct. There is absolutely no reason to think that that was an intentional act other than he was a baby playing with what he saw was some sort of toy. But we will hold the adults appropriately criminally liable for the conduct. Were there any questions?
Was the baby secured? How was the baby secured when they're trying to get? Was it she just in the arms while they're driving and during the crash?
Yes, they just grabbed the children up, jumped in the car, and ran. I don't have any details about whether or not they were seat belted. I highly doubt it, because they were in a ridiculous rush to get the child help. It's just a blessing because it was a significant crash that they all didn't suffer more injuries. Many people were transported to the hospital. It's my understanding they've been treated and released, at least all of them, in the shooting victim's car. I'm not sure whether the vehicle from the ones that were T-boned were treated and released, or if they're at the hospital. The Lakeland Police Department's investigating that. But at the end of the day, you know what we know at this stage of the investigation. And as I always say, all of this information is subject to change as we complete the investigation, but we wanted you to know what we know. It just appears to be a horrible, tragic accident that should never have occurred had the adults in the house, the adult, Chad, who owned the house, who was having the basketball party, said he didn't know that he brought a gun in the house. He never saw it. And had Cavante appropriately handled the gun, this never would have occurred. So Chad, at this point in time, doesn't have any culpability. He said, the first thing I knew, I heard a pop. We were watching a ball game. So Chad has no indication at all.
Are you able to confirm if the children were related, or if those two men were related to the children?
I am told that the children are brother and sister. We can't talk about the relationship, if there is one, between the adults and the children because of Marcy's Law. And you can't release, information that would, directly give the relationships. But they were watching these children in that house.
And you can't tell us where the residence is, just in West Lakeland?
Yeah, thanks to Marcy's Law, we can't legally give you information as to the address of the residence. I feel comfortable in telling you because everybody in the neighborhood knows it. We were in the area of Terry Avenue and Southern Avenue today, because that's no secret, everyone knows it, but I can't tell you, because of Marcy's Law, the address of where the event took place. And quite frankly, Marcy's Law frustrates me in some senses. And we could have sought waivers to give more information from the family if we had have seen that there was a specific need or interest. But, well, I know there's an interest by the media, but at this point in the investigation, we're more concerned with trying to tie details up. And at the end of the day, once again, this beautiful little baby and little fella's beautiful little guy too. I mean, they're just babies. They didn't know they did anything. He didn't know he did anything wrong. He was just playing there with his sister. And a tragedy occurred because Cavante didn't recognize the need to keep guns away from babies. And there's a specific law that deals with that. Okay?
Can you spell their names for us?
Cavante is K-E-V-O-N-T-E apostrophe Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N. He's 23. Chad and Barron, B-E-R-R-I-E-N. He's 24. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good day.